Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Stockholm once again for this one, and we're going to go back to a brewery who you've seen me review fairly regularly over the last few months, but prior to that you'd have to go back to late 2015 to see my first and only review from them for a very long time, and that was their Cookie Stout, which turned out to be a very nice beer, and it was one that really made this brewery's name kind of stick in my head for a long time, so it was quite nice when they started making their beers a little bit more kind of readily available, if you like. So for this review then, we are going to go back to Pang Brewery, who happen to also be the oldest craft brewery in Stockholm, and we're having a taste of the Respect Wood today. So this one is a barrel-aged Imperial Stout coming in at 11.5% ABV. It was released on the 1st of June 2020 through the local Småskoligt assortment in Systembolaget here in Sweden, and this is going to be beer review number 5 from these guys. The other beers that I've had from them recently were the Gang Gang, which was a New England double IPA, which was quite interesting. I'm sure it was Equinaut that was in that. Then I had the Cherry Pie Imperial Stout, which was quite interesting, and then I had the Boy Juice, was the last review that I've done from these guys. I think the next one after this will probably have to be one of their kind of sours or fruit beers, because they're supposed to be very good in that style category, so I'll need to take a look at some of those. But this is one that really just kind of struck my interest, one because it would be my first barrel aged beer from this brewery, and two, it would also I think be a little bit more of a kind of straight up Imperial Stout rather than one of the kind of, you know, more pastry, fruity type ones that I've had from them before. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. This beer cost I think 100 Swedish kronor, so that's about 10 euros for the can, or about maybe £8.50, something like that. That's the kind of price range we're looking at for this one. So a little bit more pricey, this beer, I have to say, but for a barrel aged one, you know, £10 is probably roughly what you're going to pay, especially when it's in a 440ml can rather than a 330 or something like that. But yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. This is a brewery, like I say, who are doing some very interesting beers, and one that I would recommend you check out if you find yourself in Stockholm. So let's see how we get on with this. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Pang Brewery before. No doubt I will add some more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Pang Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Pang Brewery, as I've told you before, are based in an old brewery building in Hökarängen in Stockholm, and the company was founded by Fredrik Tunedal back in 2011, which makes it the oldest craft brewery within the city of Stockholm. So he'd been involved in the restaurant business for a number of years, working in various different places, and this kind of inspired him. His love of food that he had, and you know, his love of food and just trying different things was really what made him get into brewing beer for himself, because he thought, you know, this is a kind of extension of the whole kind of foodie experience, if you like. That was really mainly what got him into craft beer, as far as I can understand. But Fredrik started off with only about 50,000 Swedish kronors, about 5,000 euros worth of savings, when he was about 25 years old, and apparently he built the equipment himself, the original equipment himself, out of old dairy tanks and things, and all the beers were brewed in very small 750 litre batches. In the early days they were mainly sent to local restaurants and things like that, but they're now quite widely available throughout Systembolaget in the city, and of course you can order them through the ordering system throughout the whole country these days as well. In July of 2015 though, Fredrik also became a bit of a distiller as well. He started experimenting a little bit, and I think that it's gin that he's producing mainly, along with one or two kind of rums and things like that. But by 2018 the production of the brewery side of things had reached 75,000 litres of beer per year. I couldn't find a figure for 2019 to see if it had upscaled a little bit, but as I said, their beers have become a little bit more readily available over the last little while. They've been releasing at least one beer per month through the local Småskoleid assortment in Systembolaget, which is great. But as of June 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 95 different kinds of beer, and they've got a kind of fairly wide variety of different things. They've got quite a few different fruit sours and things like that. You've seen me review 2 of their IPAs recently. They've got a more kind of pastry type stout in there, and yeah, I think there's a few lagers and stuff like that as well, if I remember rightly from the Untappd page. But a really nice little brewery, this one. The only other fact I can tell you about them really is that the name Pang Pang is literally the same in English as saying like bang bang, you know, shooting the guns with your fingers, pang pang. That's what the Swedes would say. But yeah, a nice little brewery, this one. Hopefully I can get up there and have a little look at it sometime, and see if I can find a few of the other different beers from them. I think the next review that I do from these guys will have to be one of their sour beers as well. It'll be quite cool to see if we can get Fredrik to do one of the Meet the Brewery interviews as well, since his brewery is the oldest one in the city of Stockholm. I think that would be a really nice thing to do. So yeah, we'll need to see. We'll need to see if we can sort that out at some stage as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Pang Pang Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open it up. As you can see, this one is a little bit plainer, I think, than some of the other artwork that I've seen from Pang Pang Brewery before. Like I said, an 11.5% barrel-aged Imperial Stout. Oh, dropping the can, that's always helpful. Yeah, scratched it a little bit. But yeah, 11.5% barrel-aged Imperial Stout, this one. And yeah, it doesn't say much else about it. It says here the ingredients are, yes, basically barley malt, wheat malt, and oats. So yeah, 11.5% this one, barrel aged, should be pretty nice. Without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. As I said earlier, this one came in at 100 Swedish crowns, 19, maybe it was 99, but yeah, 100 Swedish crowns anyway, and it was released on the 1st of June 2020 through the local Småskoleid assortment. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I think that's the first time I've ever dropped the can of a beer on one of these reviews. Actually, I've had cans and things explode on me and stuff, but I've never actually dropped one. I've never dropped a bottle actually either, but I'm glad it was a can that I dropped this time rather than a bottle, because obviously, you know, if you drop the bottle there's a higher chance that it'll smash, whereas the can you're just going to get it being a little bit fizzy. But yeah, we'll see. You get a nice aroma out of this beer as you open it up. So yeah, as you can see, and as you would kind of expect from an Imperial Stout, this guy has poured a lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour. You can see there's a solid quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of very light tan coloured head on this one, and that's fading away very quickly to just be a really thin foamy layer. If I shine the light through this one, it actually has a little bit of a nice, it really is a very dark rosewoody, it really is a very kind of dark rosewoody, yeah, rosewoody ebony kind of wood colour, this one. Nice little bit of kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, a little bit of a, you know, if you put the light through it you do get a bit of a kind of chestnutty Coca-Cola coloured edge to this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, and a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you can see the head, it's basically just a foamy ring right around the edge of it, and a few little bits of you know, kind of fluff around the edge of it. We should go the beer up, I think. Yeah, you can see more carbonation, more head forming on this one, but otherwise it is pretty, the head on this one isn't kind of sticking around too much, it is fading away. So yeah, it tends to be the higher the alcohol you get, the less head you get on the beer, but at the same time, if you've got a bit of wheat in it, you do tend to get a little bit more head retention to the beer too. I'm not sure if there's a kind of trade-off in that relationship, but yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider it's an Imperial Stout. There are one or two big bubbles sticking on the bottom of the glass, and you don't actually see, I can't actually see all that many bubbles going up towards the top of the head there, or the top of the, or the surface if you like, the bottom of the head. So yeah, it looks the part. Let's see how we get on with the aroma of this one. Really curious to see what this has in store for us. yeah, I mean, it smells pretty nice, I have to say. Straight away with this one, you get the nice kind of woody notes. I think it's bourbon barrels that this one's been aged in. It doesn't smell... it smells... American bourbon always smells a little bit sweeter than the Scotch whisky, I think. And there's just something about this, the sort of almost sugar caney type note. No, not sugar cane. It's the brown sugars in American bourbon, I just think, are quite a lot sweeter than the ones that we have back home in the Scotch whisky. So yeah, I think this one, I'm pretty sure, just going from the aroma, this has been aged in some sort of bourbon barrel rather than a Scotch whisky barrel. I think that's definitely safe to say. But yeah, you can definitely smell with this one that lovely kind of barrel aged note. You've got a lot of oaky, woody undertones to this one. You've got a little bit of an almost Werther's Original type brown sugary type quality with this beer as well. Actually, that's a really kind of interesting quality with this one as well. I like the way that the sort of brown sugary notes kind of mix together with that. It almost, as I say, comes across like a sort of Werther's Original. There's a few wee vanilla notes to this one as well, which is interesting. But when you take the nose in a little bit more deeply, you definitely get a little bit of a kind of roasty, toasty, black malty quality out of this. There is something in the aroma here that's telling me it could be Carafa, but I did learn recently from a brewer, I think it was actually Hannes Gruber at Nerd Brewing, because I thought he was using Carafa in some of his beers, and I'm sure he told me that it was Special B actually. So Special B is another one that kind of smells very like Carafa. The thing with Carafa was you always got a bit of a kind of roasty, toasty, bread crusty note out of it. And it really does, this one does have a little bit of that as well, so maybe there is some kind of Carafa in this one, but the other option might well be Special B. But I think the aroma of this beer is, the aroma of this beer comes across really quite nicely. Lovely roasty toasty, kind of black malty quality to it, but as I say, it's got an element of breadiness to it as well. And that'll be coming from the oats, I would think. I'm not sure if they'll have used oats or oatmeal in this one. There is something in the aroma that tells me it might have been a little bit of oatmeal rather than like naked oats or something like that. Because you do get, the more and more that I smell this beer, I do get a little bit more of a kind of bready, sort of brown bready quality to it. So yeah, the aroma of this one seems to be in layers. You've got a nice kind of smooth oaky note underneath. You've got a little bit of... as I say, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of, you've got a little bit of a woody undertone to it. Then you start to get the roasty black malts on top of that, or they come out a bit further forward on the nose. You've got a few kind of, how do you say, you've definitely got a sort of kind of brown bready quality that just sits in there as well, and then you've got the Werther's kind of originally notes sitting in the middle of the nose too. But yeah, I like how the malty side of the aroma comes out on this one. It does lean towards, it kind of balances itself between being quite roasty and toasty, but also being quite smooth. So I really like that kind of balance that the beer has, in fairness. So yeah, it comes across very, very nicely, I have to say. So thumbs up on the malt side of this beer. But you can smell it is barrel aged. The way the woody notes come out is very nice. On the hoppy side of things, I don't think there's too much in the way of hop character. And if it's a barrel aged beer, most of the hoppy notes are going to drop out of it, in fairness, but you do get a little bit of earthiness out of it. There is a wee kind of touch of a floral aromaticity, and you've also got a little bit of a kind of grassy quality in there as well. You know, these are kind of typical things. I'm not sure exactly what hop they would have used in this one. There's various options in there. They could have used an English hop like Bramling's Cross or something. They could have used, you know, Summit or something like that from America that will give you some of these lovely red fruity notes. But yeah, good. The earthiness comes across as a little bit stronger, which makes me wonder if it is American rather than English. The English earthiness really is quite, it's usually got a little bit of a herbal quality to it as well, but the earthiness, this one always comes across as being very almost roasty actually, which is interesting. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, this beer again is quite interesting. There's a little bit of a raisiny sharpness coming out of this one. You've got some nice kind of juicy figgy notes in there, but I think this one really leans towards the blackberry blackcurranty side of things when it comes to the fruit. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of raisiny sharpness, a little bit of an almost cherry quality, and you've got some nice blackberry and blackcurranty notes coming out of it a little bit later on. So yeah, a really interesting aroma on this one. It definitely strikes me as being a very kind of straight up Imperial Stout rather than the more kind of candied pastry things that are sort of taking hold today in this kind of category, if you like. But yeah, this one definitely makes me very curious to try. So let's not waste any more time. Let's have a look at this beer then. This one is the Respect Wood, an 11.5% barrel-aged Imperial Stout from Pang Pang Brewery in Hukarängen up in Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. Yeah, I like this one. I mean, one of the criticisms I had of the cherry pie that I had from them before was it just wasn't thick enough in terms of its mouthfeel. You know, that beer really needed a bit more oatmeal or something like that in it to thicken up. But this one really has a very, very nice mouthfeel. And I mean, the thing with this beer is as well, when you put it into, when you barrel age these beers, you know, they are going to be a little, the mouthfeel does kind of drop off a little bit. I always find barrel aged beers feel a little bit kind of thinner but more infused in their flavours than the regular ones do. But this one seems to have retained a bit of thickness really quite nicely. I'd love to have tried the original beer and then compare it to this one actually. So I don't know if the original recipe of this has been released, you know, as a kind of straight up thing. That would be an interesting release, this one. Maybe they could just call it Respect, you know, release the original Imperial Stout and just call it Respect. But yeah, this one is a nice Imperial Stout. This one, to be honest with you, if I was thinking about this compared to other barrel aged beers, I don't know if I was blind tasting this, would I necessarily guess that it was a barrel aged one? Maybe. Yeah, this one, I have to say, if I was blind tasting this, I'm actually not 100% sure if I would guess that this was barrel aged or not. Because it does have, you know, at the front of the palate, it really does have some of these, it does have some of the kind of elements that you would look for in a barrel aged beer. But I think the rest of it actually retains quite a bit of thickness. It's only really into the aftertaste. It's only really further into the aftertaste that these that the more kind of barrel aged type things come out. Actually, that's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this beer, it does have a slightly thicker mouthfeel than the other one. But the more and more I drink of it, the more I think it feels a little bit, it does actually feel a bit thinner than some of the other stouts that you're going to find there on the market. But again, you do have to consider that it is barrel aged, so I would be interested to see what the original one's like. I've said that already. But yeah, let's try and just break the flavour of this one down a little bit then and see how we get on. So across the middle of the palate there, you can feel the kind of woody, the kind of oaky woodiness just blanket in the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you do start to get a nice kind of roasty, toasty black malt out of the beer. If you go into the very centre of your palate, you can feel the roasty black malts there, and as you go further back on the palate, you can really feel it just kind of spreading there. And as you go further into the aftertaste, the woodiness, the smoothness of the woody qualities lingers there, but a bit of that roasty, toasty black malt just lingers as well. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the the sides of the tongue, you do get a little bit more earthiness out of it. You get some nice floral aromaticity there. Then as you go round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of lighter grassiness coming out of the beer. So yeah, the hoppy side of this one is pretty kind of straight up, to be honest with you. The earthiness does have a little bit of darkness to it, almost a little bit of roastiness. I think that is American hops in here rather than anything else. But you do, as I say, a little bit of floral quality on the front corners of the palate and a little bit grassy around the front curve of the tongue as well. But the malty side of things on this one, it's definitely not the most complex of you know, sort of Imperial barrel aged stouts that I've come across. So let's focus again on that malty side of things, just see what we can pick up. So yeah, like I say, nice little bit of, you know, you get that roasty toasty base to it. definitely in the middle third of your tongue, it's really got a roasty, toasty kind of underlying to it, like a well-fired bread crust, but it's somewhere between a well-fired bread crust and a straight-up black malt. It really does get quite dry in the middle of your palate. Underneath that, you get the kind of oaky, woody notes. As you move further forward in that middle third of your tongue, you will get one or two little vanilla notes out of it. There is a wee bit of a kind of charged chocolatey quality to the beer as well, which is interesting. And yeah, if you go, you know, on this one, if you go further back on the palate, you do get more and more of those toasty, well-fired, grainy type qualities coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, this one's really interesting. It's really interesting how it goes together. And when you take the beer in, and when you've actually got it on your tongue, it's actually quite sweet and a little bit balanced between, you know, brown sugars and chocolates. It's got a bit of an almost toasty caramelly note to it, and a little bit of a very dark kind of bitter chocolate there, but the middle of your palate really dries out and becomes more roasty and black malty over the while. So when you take the liquid in, as I say, quite sweet, bit dark, a bit of dark chocolate, a bit of a kind of sweet caramel in the middle of the palate, but it really dries out, and it's the roasty kind of well-fired bread crust, black malty notes that just kind of sit there on the tongue, and they kind of spread further back towards the back third of the palate as well. So I mean, as I say, this is definitely not the most complex of barrel-aged imperial stouts that I've come across, but it's very kind of straight up, and it kind of does what you'd expect. I'd say that this leans definitely towards the more roasty, toasty end of the imperial stout spectrum, if you like. So yeah, it's got quite a bit of bitterness both from the hops, pardon me, and from the malty side of things as well. Let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. I think we've kind of said all we really need to say about the malty side. I'm surprised that it doesn't have a little bit more of that kind of Werther's originally type quality to it. It's a very roasty, kind of toasty imperial stout as well. And again, the mouthfeel of this one is interesting because it feels a bit thicker than the other ones I remember having from Pang Pang. But then again, you have to remember the barrel aging is going to take the mouthfeel down a little bit, and you get these more infused flavours, if you like. I don't get too much of the brown sugars from the bourbon barrel aging until later on, and you can kind of get them towards the kind of the middle third of your tongue, if you like. If you go to the back corners of the palate and then just move kind of diagonally backwards a little bit, that's where you start to pick up some of the kind of bourbony type flavours out of this one. I'm pretty certain it's bourbon barrels rather than, you know, Scotch whisky barrels, like I said. So yeah. But yeah, the more I drink of this as well, I do think it does sweeten up a little bit. But on the fruity side of things, as I always say, the front third of your tongue, it's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. And for me, when you take this one in, it's got a lovely bit of a kind of figgy, almost plummy type quality to it. So yeah, with this one then you get, when you take it in, it's got a little bit of a kind of cherryish, plummy, almost plummy quality to it, but then it just juices out quite nicely. It becomes a little bit more figgy, maybe a little touch kind of raisiny and things, and then further forward on the tongue, you definitely get a little bit more of a kind of, as you go further into the aftertaste, you get a little bit of a kind of raisiny, not raisiny, blackcurranty, blackberry-ish type quality to this one too. But yeah, in terms of the fruitiness, I'd say it's quite juicy, and it does get a little bit sharper and more juicy and berry-like the further you go into the aftertaste as well. So I really like, I do like the fruity side of this beer, but definitely one of the more kind of roasty, toasty imperial stouts that I've had recently. And you know, it's quite a different approach I think they've taken with this one compared to the cherry pie stout that I had before. So it gets a thumbs up from me, this one. I do think that it could maybe do with a little bit of a, you know, a wee bit of caramel or something in it, just to add a wee bit, just a little touch more sweetness to it and balance it. But then again, in fairness, having a roasty, toasty imperial stout, a more Russian imperial stout, if you like, is always quite interesting too. So yeah, I do get what they're going for with this one, but definitely one of the more roasty, toasty, barrel-aged imperial stouts that I've had in recent times, I have to say. Most of the barrel-aged stouts that I've had have been a little bit sweeter and a bit smoother, so this one is a little bit quirky in that regard. But yeah, an interesting one, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you. The mouthfeel then, so I'd say that this beer is the kind of top end of mid-body, bottom end of full-body. It's kind of sitting around that side of things. In terms of carbonation, it is fairly kind of smooth. I think this the mouthfeel of this beer is actually fairly wet. It's got a little bit of an oily character to it, but mainly it's a balance between wet and oily, this one. It's, as I say, definitely not the thickest of Imperial Stouts you're going to come across, but it is barrel aged at the same time, you have to remember that. In terms of bitterness, I think we're looking at least 80 IBUs with this one. I like how that, I do like how that kind of comes out. You get a bit of roasty bitterness from the hops, and you also get a bit of roasty bitterness from the kind of the kind of black malt side of the beer as well. Definitely one of the drier Imperial Stouts I've had in recent times as well. It's a bit sweeter in the beginning when you've still got the liquid on your tongue, but it really dries out a lot and gives you a lot of bitterness, both from the malty side of things and from the hoppy side of things as well. The fruitiness on this one is quite interesting. It comes in, it's got a little touch of sharpness to it, but then it really kind of juicens up a little bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, it's a nice beer, this one. I think in terms of its price, yeah, it is a little bit more of a pricey one, but if you know the brewery and you like the brewery, you might just say, you know, bugger it and try it. But yeah, it's definitely been cool to try this one, I think. And I have enjoyed reviewing this one for you. It's made me think a little bit, this beer. So yeah, I feel this hasn't been one of my better reviews. I think I've rambled a little bit at points, but yeah, I think this is a kind of very curious Imperial Stout, and I'm glad that I've been able to try something a little bit more straight up in this category from Pang Pang Brewery. So yeah, definitely food for thought going forward, this one. So yeah, I'll need to see if I can get another stout from these guys in a few months or whatever and see how that one turns out. But yeah, an interesting beer, this one, and I'm glad that I was able to review it for you here on the channel. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. The next review that I do from these guys, I think, will have to be one of their fruity or sour beers, because they are supposed to be very, very good in that category. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Respect Wood, a barrel-aged Imperial Stout at 11.5% from Pang Pang Brewery in Huckeringen in Stockholm here in Sweden. A really interesting, roasty, toasty Imperial Stout, definitely one of the more roasty, toasty and well-fired barrel-aged Imperial Stouts that I've had in recent times. So yeah, interesting one. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Pang Pang Brewery as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point fairly soon. Do give me some other Imperial Stout recommendations. It's a style that I always enjoy reviewing, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer as well. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Pang Pang Brewery in Stockholm, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Respect Wood, a barrel-aged Imperial Stout at 11.5% from Pang Pang Brewery in Huckeringen in Stockholm here in Sweden. Slange at Skull, catch you guys with the next review. Cheers.